It's when you wake up coming out of a buzz and then you realize you're in a jail cell and don't know how the fuck you're going to pay for your bail. I lost my restaurant, I lost all the money, I have nothing in my name, and that's when I realized that, like, oh shit, I'm really like at the lowest of the lowest.
You were 6 figures in debt, your restaurant burnt out, you freaking went to jail, you had a DUI, like, oh my God, yo guys, this story's about to get real freaking good right now. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Legacy and Billions number 10. I am so excited to have Mr. Bashar on the show today. I mean, just look at this guy. He's freaking handsome. He's got that mustache. You've probably seen him on social media, on Instagram, on those big motivational pages. This guy's everywhere. He is an incredible entrepreneur and human being. And I had the pleasure to connect with him about a week ago. And it's just like one of those people that you meet once and you just connected like you've known your whole life. Just in the little time that we've been able to spend together. Just learned so much. He's a very wise guy, and that's why I want to have him on the show today. So Bashar, welcome.
Appreciate you, man. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir, my man. Yes, sir. Super grateful to have you here and to give value back to the community.
Absolutely, man. That's the goal.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, let's go ahead and dive in, man. So you are a freaking rock star. Let me tell you, your mustache is freaking amazing. I love it, brother. For you coming to where you are right now and building the empire that you have built in your industry, which we'll dive into, I want you to take us back to where you were born, where you were from, humble beginnings, and then what created this BJK University that everybody knows of now.
Iraq, March 1st, 1990 was the day. Iraq, Baghdad. Was born, lived there up until I was about 16 years old. My mother was your typical stay-at-home mom, 4 children, took care of us. My father was the breadwinner. He was a successful entrepreneur in Iraq. In the 80s and 90s, actually owned the second largest factory of clothing in Iraq. Had a net worth of about $30-40 million in the 80s. And then up until the Gulf War between Kuwait and Iraq in 91, there were sanctions on Iraq. The US dollar, the dinar went from 1 dinar equaling $3 to 1 US dollar equaling 1,200 dinars. So my father's wealth went from tens of millions of dollars to sand overnight. Wow. And he lost everything. And then in the 2003 war, that's where whatever he had left just all went, and he lost it all. And then after living in Iraq for about 3 years after the war, and technically living your typical action movie on a day-to-day, explosions, car bombings, dead people on the ground, like all that stuff, we realized that we just couldn't live there anymore. There was no future. And that's where we decided that it was time for us to leave. So my dad left everything back home, behind, and we migrated to America 06, 06, 06.
Wow. You're a great storyteller. You just gave us like the whole synopsis. That's freaking awesome, man. So coming from Iraq in the middle of a war zone, growing up, seeing the violence, the terror, the attacks, to then, hey, we got to leave everything behind, move to America to, fulfill that American dream, if you will. So What was that like, coming to America, being a foreigner, an immigrant?
So, obviously there's a few challenges right off the bat. Number one, you have no money because, not only do you have no money, but you actually have some debt that you've accumulated trying to leave the country and come over here. So that's the first thing. The second thing is culture shock. Iraq is although I am a man of Christian faith, but Iraq is a Muslim country, and it's in the East. And so the culture there is completely different. We were born there, we grew up there. It's completely different. Where now we're in the West. We don't speak the language. We don't have any relatives to rely on. And so now we have to start making friends, start, building our own family, try to make a living, try to learn the language, and try to pay off whatever debt we have. And so there's those, obstacles right off the bat. It's like you show up and then boom, you're kind of dropped off in the middle of nowhere, and now you just have to deal with it. On top of that, now you have to start thinking about your future. What does that look like? How do I plan for the future? Because up until now, especially over the past, the previous decade, we were living day to day. We would literally, especially the last 3-4 years, we would go to sleep and not know if we were going to wake up the next morning. Because it was an act of war. There is the military, the U.S. military, literally driving around in Humvees and tanks on the streets, and then there is the Iraqi militias that got created after, where the government pretty much got torn up, and there was no one governing. So all these little militias started formulating, trying to take over little pieces of Iraq, and there's that active fighting on the streets. And what happens is civilians just, are in the middle of all of it, people dying on the streets for no reason, really. You have that, and then now you're in a brand new country, in a brand new culture, brand new world, and you're trying to learn and acclimate and then try to build a future. So there's those problems right off the bat, right? And then I started going to school, and then now I'm getting bullied in school.
Wow.
I'm being picked on, and I don't know how to react to that. The way that I dressed was completely different than the way that people dressed here. And so kids are making fun of how I dressed. I had a long, slick back hair. People are making fun of that. The way that I speak is too soft. Sometimes it's too masculine. I'm being made fun of there. I have a thick accent. I'm being made fun of there. So now I have all these things that are working against me in a brand new country, brand new environment. And I don't have a foundation at home that is supportive, because my family's trying to figure out their stuff, right? So I have all that kind of going against me and my family.
Jesus Christ, man. That is so deep right there. What you've been through just coming in as an immigrant and everything that you had to go through to get to where you are right now. I can tell why you have such a strong character and who you are and who I've met you to be. It's just you radiate this, honestly, like this, you have a Christ-like energy. Like I can see your soul is so pure, and you're such a nice guy. To you becoming that through what you've been through. I didn't even know this side of your story. The bullying, the being made fun of, having the culture shock. Like that's something that not many people actually survive, and go through.
Sure.
Looking back, if that was me, I was like, bro, I would have called my boys up in Iraq, send me a bomb. We're gonna freaking, we're gonna freaking get these kids, bro. What's up, man? I thank God. I was never bullied, but man, that's just something that can mess up a childhood,
Absolutely.
right, for somebody. And I guess that made you, grow up with like a chip in your shoulder in a way. Like, how did you manage that growing up as a teenager, going through school? Was it just like, hey, I'm going to get through it. I just got to, do my homework, do good in school, and then move on? Like, what was that process like for you?
PBD said it last weekend, is during crisis, we recreate ourselves. And usually we use that as a launch pad to the next thing. And so, reflecting back, I pretty much channeled all that, what's the word? I don't want to use a word of such as hatred, but more of maybe pain, right? It was internal pain. And just recently, I actually realized something after doing some, literally the day after doing the yearly plan and stuff like that. And I spent about 6 hours in reflection. And I realized that, so I've always had a pride and ego that has held me back in my life. But I also realized that I actually am a people pleaser, and I always try to avoid conflict.
Wow.
And so something that I have learned through working with, doing some deep work over the last couple of years and having a performance coach, is that a lot of our character is built between the years of 2, 3 to about 9, 10, because our brains are like a sponge, and we're just accumulating all this knowledge, all this input, we're taking it in. And what I realized is that during that time in my life, in my childhood, there was a lot of conflict at home. My siblings are older, so my older brother is 9 years older than me. My oldest brother is 25 years older than me, right? So my siblings are old because my father is 84, my mom is 72. I'm 33. So my dad had me at 50, right? And so there was a lot of conflict in my home. My siblings fighting. We're talking about teenagers fighting. We're not talking about little children, 8, 9-year-olds. My mom and sister fighting, boyfriends at school, blah, blah, blah. And so there was a lot of conflict in my childhood. So I grew up being the guy that always avoided conflict. If my boys are about to get into a fight, I was always the guy that said, walk away. It's not worth it, right?
We're remarkably similar, man. You're making me have flashbacks right now to my childhood and my family.
So what happened was, when I was in school, I was avoiding conflict. When I was being picked on, I wasn't fighting back. When I was, being made fun of, I wasn't fighting back. And what happened is I took all that in, there was no outlets for me, right? Which was obviously a bad thing psychologically, but it was also a good thing because I used that to say, okay, assholes, I'm going to show you what I'm going to do, right?
You chose your enemies wisely.
Correct. And the only thing that I knew how to do was to succeed financially, at least the first decade of my life, of my entrepreneurial career, right? And so I pretty much used all that to go to the next level. My mom sold me on the idea of you should become a doctor because that's how, you're able to live a good life. And she was a good salesperson. She really sold me good. Because in her eyes, there's only two routes. There is you go to school, you get a good degree, and then you get a job and all that, or you become an entrepreneur. The entrepreneurial route was risky because her thing was you saw your dad, he became successful, he did all these things, and then he failed. His businesses blew out. And it wasn't of his doings. The government just...
External forces, outside circumstances.
Correct. So you can't control it, right? Where if you have a degree, you can control that. And then she had a few cousins and relatives that were doctors, living a good life. So she showed me that, and I was like, all right, that made sense. But then, 2, 3, 5 years into it, I went to college, started studying to become a doctor, and I realized it just wasn't for me. And instead, I wanted to follow in my father's footsteps. And so this is how I used all the pain and kind of channeled it, and especially in my early on years, to kind of start my entrepreneurial journey,
Incredible, man. Incredible. One question popped up to my mind, because I know we can go on and talk a lot about business, but you said that you were born in Iraq in a Muslim country, right?
Right.
But you're a Christian man of faith. Do you mind sharing your testimony?
Here's the interesting thing. I'm Catholic, and we're only about 3 to 5% of the population of Iraq. And then all the countries around us are, all Muslim countries. Growing up, there wasn't Muslim and Christian. We were Iraqis. That's all what it was. The only time that became a conflict was after the war, when the government technically went away, when there was no governing body, right? And that's when I actually started feeling and that was one of the biggest reasons why we left Iraq, is we started feeling the discrimination, right? And that was one of the reasons why we actually, fled Iraq technically. Now, with that said, personally, I have nothing against Muslims. I have nothing against Jews. I have nothing against no one. In fact, about 30 to 40% of my team is Muslim, right? They're all Middle Easterns. My name is Bashar. I'm brown. Probably about another 20, 30% of our community, our students, are actually from the Middle East because, again, immigrant, the story, they relate to it. My name is Bashar. It's an Arabic name, so people are attracted to that. So it was just that period where I actually felt the discrimination. But I think it's up to you to what you want to do with that. You could either play the victim and say, poor me, I'm 3% of population, and oh my God, and everything's going against me. Or you could say, what, screw all that. Whatever, this environment is not working. Let me change my environment and then go do something else and evolve as a person, Because the thing that I came to realize recently is that if someone is trolling you on the internet, for example, I have trolls. I'm pretty sure you have trolls. You've probably seen trolls on the internet. Someone is calling you a scam or someone is whatever, right? Usually we take offense. And we're like, why is this person calling me a scam? Why is this person calling me out? Why is that? This person doesn't know what I do and this, But if we remove ourselves from the situation and look at it from a third person perspective and put yourself in that person's shoes and realize they are just projecting at you what's happening in their lives. It has nothing to do with you. It's what that person is going through. That person is probably miserable, probably has a job that they hate, probably, doesn't have the best relationship with their spouse or their kids or whoever else. And then they see someone from what it looks like that's having everything that they want. So the immediate thing is attack.
Hate, envy, jealousy. Greed.
Exactly. And so when I go back to what was happening in Iraq and stuff like that, although at the time it felt horrible because like many of those that were kind of now, pointing fingers at me and like the Christian or whatever, it was like, these were kids that I grew up with. So it was very sad as much as painful. But then now looking back, it's like, well, it was the environment. I don't blame them. It was the environment that forced them to think this way or to act this way. And it was what was happening because everyone's home was being destroyed. It doesn't matter if you're a Christian or a Catholic or a Muslim or a Jew or whatever. Everyone's home was being destroyed. You'd literally be sitting down like this right now, we're talking, and a rocket can fall in here and kill both of us. We just didn't know what was going on. You couldn't think about the future. Imagine you're living in a country where it's 120-degree weather. There's no electricity. There is no gas. There's no oil. There's no basic necessities. We're here doing a podcast and talking about our lives and stuff like that, where conversations there were about what time is the power going to be on? Oh, it's going to be off. Okay, so if I try to take a nap before I go to work, I have to do it this time because it's so hot and I can't take a nap. These are the conversations.
Wow.
Basic necessities did not exist there. That's what consumed your brain. So imagine the kind of mindset and the kind of state that you're going to be in all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's so deep, man. So for you, having gone through those lowest points of your life, I'm sure you live your life with so much gratitude and you're thanking God every day for everything that you have. What was that transition like for you to build the American dream? So you were in high school, you went through that process, and then did you go straight from high school to college, university, or you said, hey, I'm going to become an entrepreneur?
So in 2011, my family and I decided to start our own business. So we took over a local pizzeria. It was me, my brother, and my...
2011. So this is out fresh out of high school?
Yeah, right around then. My 64-year-old mom at the time, 72-year-old dad, and we would just work 7 days a week, open, close every single day. And then about a couple years later, I decided that I wanted to kind of start my own thing. I wanted to go out of the family. I felt like the family was holding me back. I wanted to move a lot faster. They were holding me back, and that's when I started my own restaurant, my own business. That was the first business that I ever started. 2011, I took it over on September 28th, 2013. And I remember it was a Tuesday, I think. And we started, and that was my first business ever. I had no business in starting my own business because I had no experience in running a business. I wasn't mature enough. I had an ego that was bigger than this building. And that's why I said earlier, ego and pride were some of the things that have held me back in my life. And I've seen that happen all the time nowadays because oftentimes people think that, if this person can do it, I can do it too. They got to figure it out. I can figure it out. That's why I always say, man, whatever you're trying to do, someone else has accomplished where you're trying to go. Learn from them instead of you going through trial and error, right? So that was kind of the start of my entrepreneurial journey. It was about 10 years ago when I finally branched out. Since then, I've launched 9 businesses. The first 7 miserably failed. 3 of the 7 actually made money for a little while and then failed. My 8th business succeeded. My 9th business has succeeded so far. And now we're here.
Yeah, man. And before we get on there, I know that you have had an experience, despite what you've been through, that restaurant. Can you share a little bit more about what happened? From what I recall, it got on fire, you got in debt. So it's like your first business, you're trying something new, you're trying to make it, and then shit hits the fan.
Yeah. About 2.5 years, about 8 months into it, I realized that I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I watched reality TV show and thought that I was an expert at running a business. It was a Bar Rescue by John Taffer. I don't know, have you ever watched it? No. And so after watching it for 6 months, I was like, I know everything there is to know about running a restaurant. I got this, right? Well, 6 months into it, I realized I knew nothing about running a restaurant. And debt started, accumulating, food purveyors, owing them a bunch of money. So about 2.5, 3 years into it, April 28th, 2015 was the day.
I love how precise you are with all these events.
There's some dates, man, you can't forget because they change your life, right? So April 28th, 2015, it was around 5 o'clock. I had just met my girlfriend at the time, not my wife. We had been dating for, 4 or 6 months or something like that. I believe it was a Wednesday. I was leaving to go pick her up because I know Wednesdays were my days off. I'm leaving at 5 o'clock. That's my day off. I'm leaving to go pick her up so we can go eat. 5 minutes after leaving, during business hours, I get a call. It's John, the bartender. He's like, hey, boss, the kitchen is on fire. I was like, we've got an extinguisher. What are you talking about? I thought like some boxes caught on fire or something, you know? It's like, no, you don't understand. We're all outside. The fire department is here. The place is burning down. And I was like, oh, shit. Turn back around. 10 minutes later, I'm back there. There is about 6, 7 fire engines, and I just see smoke. Well, someone watching right now will be like, well, okay, not doing well in business, you know, it is what it is, insurance will pay. Well, 3 months prior, I had stopped paying insurance.
Oh my God.
Because a restaurant, I needed to have like $1 million, $2 million policy, whatever, to cover all these things. People get drunk, whatever. I was paying like $1,200, $1,300. I'm like, I've had the insurance for 2 years. Nothing has happened. What's the worst can happen? I'll take that money, put it somewhere else, you know? Well, the worst did happen. Lost about between $300,000 to $400,000 of money that we had invested, reinvested, never made a dime in those 3 years. Came out of the whole journey with about $150K in debt, which I took the next, 2-3 years to pay off. 4.5, 5 months after the restaurant, I got a DUI. And that's when I realized that I really hit rock bottom, right? It's when you wake up coming out of a buzz, and then you realize you're in a jail cell and don't know how the fuck you're going to pay for your bail. That's when I was like, what's happened to me right now? How did I get here? Because I thought that since I was a little kid, I knew. It was a feeling. I had a feeling deep down. I said, I am destined to build something big. I'm destined to do something really big in this life. I didn't know what. I didn't know why. I didn't know where it came from. I didn't know what I was going to do. But I just knew, I knew it. Like it was a feeling. I was sure, very sure. I said, I'm going to build something really big in this life. Like I'm destined to do something really big. And I always used to live these fantasies. Like I would go on for hours living this fantasy, this life. Even for a while, I was like, maybe I should be like a writer or something, you know, do movie
You would
scripts
make a
or
good
whatever.
poet.
You know?
I could see that
You know?
happening. A great writer.
And I'm like, that would kind of be interesting, you know, movie scripts. That would be kind of cool, you know. Never got into it, but so then when I woke up in that jail cell, I was like, how did I go from that to here? Because I thought I was going to become like a restaurateur and open all these bars and clubs and all this stuff, you know. And then I lost my restaurant. I lost all the money. I have nothing in my name. You know, I had 2 cars repoed at the time. I had a CTS Cadillac, a 2012 CTS Cadillac Coupe. They were beautiful. I love these cars. And I had gotten my car my mom a Honda Pilot. And one day she calls me. She goes, "Hey, why are they towing my car?" I was like, "I think there's a recall. That's what's happening here." She never got the car back. She never got the car back.
Are you kidding me?
She never got the car back. So I go from that to there, and that's when I realized that oh shit, I'm really at the lowest of the lowest.
Oh my God, Bashar, I had no idea about this. There's people out there that have $5,000 in credit card debt. They're freaking out. People have $50,000 and they think their life's over. Brother, you were 6 figures in debt. Your restaurant burnt out. You freaking went to jail. You had a DUI. Oh my God, yo guys, this story's about to get real freaking good right now because you've been able to transform your life. I mean, completely 360. I had no idea about this story, man. So, and the fact that your girlfriend stick through that all,
yeah,
and now being your wife, she's a real
she's
one,
still
man.
there.
She's a real one. You know how to pick them, brother. Wow. So where do we even start from going there? Where was the epiphany? What was that aha moment? What changed? What was that moment where you drew the line in the sand, or that's it?
You know, I don't know if it was an epiphany. It was just a path change, right? There is not trying to get biblical here or anything, but there is this this picture, and I have it on my phone. It's a picture of this child with a teddy bear, and then it's Jesus on that side, and then with a bigger teddy bear behind him,
yeah.
And he's trying to take the teddy bear from the child, and the child's like, "But God, I love this," you know. but there's a bigger teddy bear in the back. And so, and that every time I think about it, I get very emotional because what I realized is sometimes we get fixated on a journey, on a specific path, and we don't see that there is something a lot bigger for us. But because you're in the middle of it, you know? And that's why when PBD said over the weekend, you must recreate yourself to go to the next level and don't wait for a crisis to recreate, to force you into recreating yourself. Unfortunately, oftentimes, that's what it takes. It takes a crisis for you to recreate yourself. So I don't know if it was necessarily an epiphany, because immediately after I started something else and that took off, right? And we can get into what that was, kind of illegal, but anyways, I realized that I just needed to be like, I was like going fast. Someone just needed to pick me up from here and then drop me off here, and I would continue going fast. That's all it was. And I was just like hitting a wall. And then here was like clear path. But because I'm an emotional person and I get very emotionally invested in everything I do.
Same.
And because I'm emotionally invested, like I don't have a logical brain where it's like, it's about business for me, it's about making money and that's it. If this doesn't make sense, I'm going to go here. For me, it's more about like, well, but it's my reputation and it's this and it's that, you know, and I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. So I just literally needed to be removed from this path and put on this path, and then I just went, right? So I never really had a downtime, for example, you know? For probably like 4 or 5 months, I had about 2 weeks of unpaid salaries for my team, and I had no money in the bank. And I was getting like threats, like, you know, like literally and everyone lived in the same city as me. And I would be getting like death threats and on my phone every day. If I see you, I'll beat you up, blah, blah. So literally, because I was scared for my life, I started driving for Uber and I started washing dishes at Hilton Hotel just so that I can pay these guys. Because it was like I understand, you know, they were living paycheck to paycheck. So that was the only downtime. But even during then, I knew that I was doing that temporarily until I got the next thing. And once I found the next thing, literally within like 3 months, I found what the next thing was, and then I jumped on the next thing immediately, right? And then I started. And then I did that for about 2015 to about 2016, 17. And then at that same time, that's when I started my Amazon business. But during that, I also started another business. And then that took off. And that did well for like a year and a half. And then I lost all the money. And then my Amazon business took off. And then that's when kind of went to the next level.
Got it.
Yeah.
Powerful stuff, brother. Powerful, powerful stuff. Okay, so why don't you share with the audience, what is it that you do?
So originally, I started selling on Amazon in 2015. Built a 7-figure store. 2019, I started a coaching business teaching people how to sell on Amazon. And that was after I got a text message from Zach Brown. If you're watching, Zach, congrats, buddy. He said he made $36,000 in 6 months. He was a 23-year-old kid that drove for FedEx for like 12, 13 hours a day. His life transformed. The money was great, but the thing that I realized is that Zach wanted to travel the U.S. and get into dirt biking tournaments, and he couldn't do that while he was working his 9 to 5. So now I allowed him to do his passion, to focus on his passion, and I realized that I had a skill that can transform someone else's life. And that's when I was like, all right, there's a bigger purpose here. I can serve at a higher level while making great money. So in 2019, I went all into my consulting business, BJK University. Today we've served over 13,000 people worldwide. It's an 8-figure business that does very well, and we're on a mission to impact 1 million lives by providing them an alternative to traditional education. Providing them a skill they can turn into income within 90 days instead of going to school for 3-4 years, wasting tens of thousands of dollars. I literally have students that have MBAs and bachelor's degrees and all that stuff that after 10 years of technically wasting their life working a job they hate, now they're like, well, I want to do something else. I want to be able to provide better for my family. I want to be able to actually work and be there for my family, not be slaving away at a job that I don't like. So that's what I'm doing right now.
I love that. So tell me a little bit about the traditional education system versus developing a skill.
So, I mean, I went through it. I went to elementary school, middle school, high school. I mean, except math and English, I don't know if there was anything that I learned there that I actually use today. Then I went to college. And I can't tell you the classes that I took in college. Like, I sometimes really try to sit and remember, not even just lessons or things that I learned that I implemented in my life. I'm talking about the actual classes. Like, I can't remember the classes that I took. You know? It was just such a non-memorable experience because I really didn't want to be there. It was the end goal that I wanted to do, which was a doctor. And it was like, I'll do whatever I need to do to get there. But it was like, I was studying a bunch of stuff that meant nothing to me. I didn't enjoy, didn't feel like a value add then, don't feel like a value add now. For me to want to become a doctor, it would have taken me, so I'm 33, I would have probably just graduated like last year, maybe a couple of years ago, and actually been able to go on my own because there's the pre-med, 4 years, then there's medical school, 4 years, then there's another 2 years of residency, and so it's like a 10, 12-year journey. That's probably going to cost you anywhere between $50,000 to $150,000 a year, right? And so you combine all that together and say you graduate at 30 years old and you are a doctor. Well, I don't know what a starting salary for a doctor is, but it's not as great as people think. Say you're making $150,000 a year. Say you're making $200,000 a year. If you live in California, you're only taking home half of that, right? That's number one. So number one, half of your income is going to the government. Number two, you probably have about $200,000 to $300,000 in student debt they have to pay off, unless your daddy is rich or you got some type of scholarship or something like that, you know what I mean? And oftentimes, 10, 20 years into it, you're like, I kind of don't want to do this shit anymore, right? So that's the traditional school system. Now, I took the extremist of the extreme examples, someone becoming a doctor, a lawyer, whatever, right? But that's only what, like 2%, 3%, 5% of those that go to college? What about everyone else? Everyone else is just getting a bachelor's degree in something that they probably don't want to do. They just do it because they thought it's going to get them a good job. You're going to, again, come out of there with student debt. After 4, 5, 6 years, you're going to get a job, and then that job is going to hopefully give you a decent life so that you can hopefully live 40 years, so that you can hopefully retire at 65, so that we can hopefully only live until 80, because God forbid if you live until 85, you probably don't have enough in your 401k and you're screwed. So hopefully you die at 80, right? And live the golden years, 15 gold, it's like at that point, half of what you got isn't working, So it's like, I don't want to do that. I want to live my golden years today. When you acquire a skill, you can actually, that's something that you can do something about it today. It shouldn't take you 10 years to be able to start earning from your skill. It should only take you it should take you months, maybe a year, right? And then that's a skill that you can actually implement and start making money with today, tomorrow, next day. And that's the biggest difference between, a lot of people talk badly and badmouth the online education guru, industry that has come around in the last 5, 10 years. But it's because it goes completely against what we've been, what we've been taught and pretty much brainwashed for decades now, which is go to school, get a degree, retire, right? Because you can actually do something, it's tangible, you can do something with it today. That takes forever. I don't know what that's about, And so that's one of the biggest things I'm passionate about. It's like, disrupt the education system. The education system is just a dinosaur system that needs to fucking go. Now, do we need doctors? Do we need lawyers? Sure. Should it take them 10 years? I don't think so.
Got it. So disrupting the education system is what you're on a mission on. Would you share your mission statement? What is that mission?
We're on a mission to impact 1 million lives at a time by disrupting the education system.
And so BJK University, what does that do for people that want an alternative way to build a skill, have freedom, and make more money?
It provides them with a skill they can turn into income within 90 days or less. Right now, that skill is how to sell on Amazon, because that's what I was. I was an Amazon seller. I figured out the skill, and then now I can turn it into income. And then I started teaching other people how to do it. Over the next 5 years, we're going to take that same system that we built behind teaching people how to sell on Amazon, but implement it across all kinds of other skills. Because not everyone wants to start a business, and selling on Amazon is a business. You actually have to start a business. Some people want to work for other companies, and that's great. You can become a copywriter. You can become a content designer, especially with the online world. You can become a remote sales rep, for example. You can become there is literally tens and tens and tens. You can become stock trader. You can become an affiliate marketer, driving traffic to other people's products. There are so many things that one can do today from their couch. It's not simple. Or it's not easy, but it's simple, right? And it's a skill that will help them develop that they can turn into income within 90 days or less. So over the next 12 months, we're hoping to introduce at least one new skill. And then after that, probably introduce 2 to 4 new skills every year.
I love that, man. So starting your own business from scratch is something that you help people do. Right? You've been very, very successful at it because there's a lot of people in the industry, in the market, but your brand has always stood out, and you're backed by a lot of customer testimonials and results. How would you advise to somebody, because nowadays, you said it, there's so many things that we can do. There's so many different ways that we can make money. There's so many different industries that we can get into.
Yes.
How would you advise somebody to pick that one skill or that one industry to get into and capitalize? Because there's a lot of people that I'm sure have gotten your course, but then they get the shiny object syndrome. They go to the next thing, they don't fully finish because they see another money-making opportunity. How do you know what's the right skill for somebody?
So I call this the discovery phase. And the discovery phase takes between 3 to 6 months. And it has 3 steps. Step number 1, research for a minimum of 30 to 60 days of everything there is out there in the space of your interest. So maybe it's, I want to start an online business. Okay, I want to start an online business. Literally go to YouTube, that's what I did, and search how to make money online. The top 10, 15 results, pick the top 5, and then just simply research those for the next 30, 60 days. Step number 2, take those top 5 or top 10, and then reduce them down to top 3, and then find 1 or 2 people in each one of those 3 things that teach the thing, and start following them for another 30 days. The reason being is, whatever you're trying to do, someone else has done it before you. Instead of you trying to learn it through trial and error, piggyback on someone else's success. But you want to resonate with someone because you could talk about, Amazon, I can talk about Amazon. Someone will resonate with you more than they would resonate with me, and vice versa. After that, so we're talking now, we're in 90 days or so. Then step number 3, drop everything and focus. And just literally focus. Focus, on one course until successful. Right? And do nothing else. And you got to promise yourself, and that's where you got to ask yourself these 2 questions. Number 1, is this something that I see myself doing for the next 1 to 2 years? If the answer is yes, ask yourself the second question. If after 1 to 2 years, I fail, I miserably fail, I've done everything I can, I follow this person, everything failed, will I regret the last 1 to 2 years? The answer must be no. I will not regret the last 2 years. If the first answer is yes, the second answer is no, then you found the thing that you should focus on. And at least focus on it for the next 1 to 2 years. That's what I did.
So 2-year minimum is what you would advise to somebody that's trying to get into developing a skill or getting into an industry. Stick to it for at least a minimum of 2 years.
At least a minimum of 2 years. Anyone that says anything different, like people that say, I'm going to help you make $10 million over the weekend or whatever. It's like, dude, anything great requires time. Anything worth having requires time. I've never heard of anyone that has done anything great that's worth talking about that did it over the weekend or whatever. You need time, you need effort, you need energy, you need finances, you need you have to invest the time. And then people say, well, some people would argue and say, well, that's too long. I'm like, okay, what's the alternative? You go to school, you go to college, you go to a 4-year college, you get a degree after 4 years, and then hopefully that gets you a job that makes $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. Is that what you want? That's the alternative. Or you do this, and you could be making a lot more than what this job would make you, and do something they actually enjoy doing because you've spent the time to research. And that's the other thing. I don't think people spend enough time in research. They just hear their brother-in-law, sister did this thing and they're doing great. And it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to do the same thing. It's kind of like the crypto thing. While a lot of people lost, half of their fortune on it, it's because they heard someone put in money here, did well, and they're like, all right, well, I'm going to do it. And out of nowhere, they lost everything. I was
100%.
one of those people.
100%. Well, that's part of the learning curve, right? You try some things, they don't work out. You just keep going and you keep trying and you keep, sticking through it, because eventually, things will work out.
Correct.
And you've been a great example of how that's been in your life, having that persistence, that tenacity, that level of focus. Having such a big brand and a name and personality, how do you deal with criticism or judgment? You touched a little bit upon this, but I wanted to ask more of a direct question. How do you deal with the criticism? Because a lot of people are like, yeah, I want to start this online business, but people are going to hate on me. They're going to quit. I mean, not hate, but they're going to hate. They're going to criticize me. They're going to judge me. And that's a big thing on social media these days. People are afraid of putting themselves out there.
Yeah. You have to think about why you're doing what you're doing. And then you have to ask yourself, is what I'm doing big enough where it's worth me dealing with negativity? And for me, absolutely. I am on a mission to impact 1 million lives. If that means that I'm going to get called a scammer a few times a day, that a few trolls are going to leave some hate comments on Instagram, so be it. Because my mission is so large that it's like, dude, if you look at my comments right now, I argue with these people sometimes when I'm just kind of vibing and I have a few minutes to kill. I'll go on my comments and I'll find someone that's calling me out and I'll sit there and have an argument with them. Well, here's the thing. If you're watching, two things. Number one, you're helping the algorithm. So me and you are arguing. Guess what Instagram is doing? They're boosting that post. So that's number one. Number two, you sound dumb as fuck, because there is not a single person that's called me a scam that's actually enrolled in any of my programs. Not a single person. Since I started growing on social media, since I had 1 million followers on Instagram or whatever, it's been a couple years now. Almost every time I go out, especially here in Miami, it's like an entrepreneurial epicenter. Someone comes up to me and says, hey man, I've been following you on Instagram, blah, blah, great stuff. Probably maybe say 75 people have come up to me in the last 2 years. Not a single time has someone come up to me and said something negative. Not a single time. It's always positive. Do you know why? Because the trolls and those that call you out on social media or in articles or whatever, they're only good at doing that. They're good at hiding behind screens. They'll never come up to your face and actually say it to your face because they don't have the balls. So to me, it's again, removing myself from the situation and thinking about where this person is actually at in their lives. If you are in such a bad state where your name is on your profile, your face is on your profile, and you're going to actually call someone out and call them a scam for not knowing anything about them or call them a name or whatever, it's dude, you really have to be in a low place in your life for you to be doing that. Because can you imagine the energy that person is feeling?
Yeah.
Can you imagine the energy that that person is having and attracting around their lives and their pretty much what they're doing every day? They're walking around manifesting bad things in life. And if that's what's going on in their lives, I feel bad for them, man.
Yeah.
But again, you got to go back to your purpose. If you have a mission in life, if your purpose is so large, if what it takes is a few people calling you out, so be it. And I think criticism is important. I think it's important. People keeping us accountable is important. Accountability is very important. It's a concept that I've recently come across. Again, because I am subconsciously a people pleaser, I've always stayed away from accountability. I've stayed away from people holding me accountable and me holding people accountable. But I've recently come across it and realized how important it is. So I think accountability is very important. And I think more people should be held accountable, especially in today's society.
How did you overcome that need to please people?
Self-reflection. I literally sat in the car and I started talking to myself like a crazy person and saying, walk me through a situation where you believe that you were trying to people please, and let's see how that's held you back. Boom, situation A. This person was trying to leave and I didn't want him to leave and I kept him for 3 months extra, but because I kept him, number one, I was paying him $8,000. That's $24,000 extra that came down from the bottom line of the company. Number two, that person stayed on and they ended up intoxicating another person and that person left. Number three, that person left and did this much damage to the company, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Now, you also know that you've dealt with having a big ego and too much pride. Okay. Show me a situation where ego and pride have held you back in life. Okay, well, there was this mastermind that I got invited to, but I thought I was too good for these people because they were 7-figure entrepreneurs and I'm an 8-figure entrepreneur, and I didn't go. But had you gone there, you could have gotten one piece of advice that could have probably added a few $100,000 to your business. Okay, check. That's $300,000 right there. Now, walk me through again. What is the one situation, blah, blah. And I literally sat there and did it for like 2 hours. And I came up with about $2 million a year that I have lost financially because of those things. So now it's like I'm forced to say, fuck this, no more. How do I fix this today? Not tomorrow, not next day. But that's why it's important to reflect. Because of social media, because of how much input there is out there and that's accessible, we're always looking for answers out there. I have a problem, who can help me? Let me go to social media, let me go on TikTok, let me go on Google. But what we don't realize is the conscious mind can only take about 6 to 7 pieces of input at a time. The subconscious mind takes in millions of pieces of input at any given time. And we have billions of pieces of information stored inside. But because there's so much noise out there, we can't listen to what's in here. So if we're actually able to quiet everything down out there and listen to inside, we can actually get all the answers we need. But you need to be able to go deep and listen and sit with yourself. Reflection is a great thing. I never used to journal. I used to never reflect. I thought it was a waste of time. But as of I started doing it recently, I started realizing how important it is and how I actually can get all the answers that I'm looking for. They're all staring me in the face. I just have to listen in.
That is powerful. That is powerful, especially going into the new year. Part of recreating yourself is identifying those blind spots and having that self-reflection for you to align yourself with the results that you want.
Correct.
That was freaking powerful right there. So self-reflection, is it something that you do on a daily basis now?
Not necessarily. I try to a couple times a week, but every Sundays I do a weekly review. So I have 5 questions that I ask myself. How did I do last week? Certain questions. How am I going towards my goals? What am I going to do next week to better position me? So I know that I do it at least once a week. And then on Tuesdays, my performance coach asks me, did you do your Sunday review? And I never want to say no. So sometimes if I skip Sunday, I'll do it on Monday or Tuesday right before the meeting or something like that. But I try at least once a week. Sometimes, as of late, when I go to sleep, I feel like reflecting. I'm in a very meditative state over the last couple of months, or I have been. I'm trying to stay in that kind of state. So I'll do a lot more reflection now. But it just kind of depends on like the phase of life that I'm in. But I try at least once a week.
Understood. And you mentioned too the avoidance of conflicts. How did you overcome that? Avoiding conflicts. Yeah.
So it's, for me, it's the things that I've in my mind that have held me back are 2 buckets: pride and ego, avoiding conflict, and people pleasing. So for me, they kind of fall in the same bucket, right? And so whenever I come up with a situation where I was trying to please someone, at the same time, I was also trying to avoid a conflict. So for me, they both fall in the same situation or in the same bucket. They're one of the same. I just decided to put both phrases because I felt like they were both relevant for me to keep top of mind. And then now I have little sticky notes, next to my desk. Every quarter I update them, like kind of the theme for the quarter. And so I have phrases because I recently came across a phrase, COI, cost of inaction. So I have COPL, cost of people pleasing, avoiding conflict. So AC, right? So I have that, and then I have like a few phrases like this: cost of that, cost of pride and ego. So COAP or whatever, or AE. So I have all that next to my desk, and then I keep looking at it all the time. And I know there's triggers. I keep triggers all around my desk. So that way I know if situations happen. For example, yesterday, I had in 2 weeks, my executive team is flying into Miami to do our quarterly or our yearly planning. 2 of them booked separately at the same hotel. One of them, his hotel, same night, same amount of nights. One of them was able to get his hotels for 900 and something. The other one got the same room for 1,700. If this was me 2 months ago, I'd have been like, who cares? It's a few $100s. And I was like, hang on, if this guy can get it for 900, why the hell did this guy get it for 17? And it took me about a good 2 minutes to actually send a message. And I was like, hey, this person got it for 900. Do you know why you got it for 17? Can you please look into it? I would appreciate it if you're able to, if it's a different room.
Because this is all on your expense, right?
Yeah, it's on the company. Like if you can switch it around and then it turned out that he had already seen that and he was already on it. But again, if it was 2 months ago, I wouldn't have said something about it. Because of it could be a part of everything. It could be pride. It could be, who cares? It's a few $100s. It could be people pleasing. It could be avoiding conflict, because what if he comes back and says, come on, dude, we're making all this money, who cares, I know he wouldn't say that because that's not the culture that I have. But again, I would have probably avoided that.
Amazing, Bashar. Thank you for sharing that. Culture. I heard Mitch talk about you have one of the greatest cultures actually in the industry. So tell us a little about how to create an incredible culture.
2 things, mission and purpose. When you have a purpose that's bigger than the individual, that people can rally around, and when you tie the growth to the purpose rather than the paycheck, things change. You create an opening for people that they fill it in like a vacuum. Because, I can sit in a meeting and say, this year we have a target of $50 million. You need to generate this many sales. You need to generate that many sales. You need to generate that many sales. If you generate those kinds of sales, you're going to make that much money. Let's go. And that's like double, if not triple, their salary last year. And we are a for-profit company, and that would be appropriate. But I always make it about the mission and about the impact, which at the end of the day, it creates the same result, right? But I have interviewed probably over 300 people over the last couple of years as we have grown our company. And I've had people making $20,000, $30,000 a month leave positions to come join our company. And maybe right as they join, they probably would have needed to take a 50% pay cut and then work their way up to where they were. And so I always ask, why? They always say 2 things. Number 1, growth. I'm not growing, not just financially, but I'm not growing as a person. And number 2, I don't feel like we're serving anyone. I just feel like we're here for the money, and the money's great. But there's a point in life, and maybe people that are watching that are making a couple $1,000s a month, they're like, you're crazy, I don't know what you're talking about. But I'm here to tell you, there's a point in life when you start making a certain amount, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a month, where it's like all of your basic needs are met. Everything that you need to make happen is met. Instead of driving a Mercedes, you'll drive a Bentley. Instead of living in a $750,000 house, you'll live in a $1.5 million. It's like, okay, at this level, you're just kind of showing off here. You know what I mean? Money becomes just a number. I'm not saying don't make money. I'm saying go make a shitload of money and get super freaking rich. But tie that into a bigger purpose. Something that's bigger than you, bigger than your team, bigger than your company, bigger than anything that you guys are doing. That's why for us, it's about impacting people's lives. Whenever I need to drive my sales team, I don't say, yeah, man, I'm going to help you make an extra $10,000 a month. I say, we are on a mission to impact people's lives. It is our obligation to impact these people's lives. If you don't take an extra 5 calls today, those are 5 lives out there that are lost, that have passions that they don't know how to pursue. They have loved ones that they can't afford to take care of. And you have the skill, and we have the opportunity, and we have the vehicle to help impact their lives. So it's up to you. You can either decide not to do it, or you can decide to go work an extra 30 minutes and make it happen and potentially impact someone else's life, right? So when you do that, you're able to get the entire company and team rally around what you're trying to do. And honestly, that was because earlier on in my career, I realized that if I want to build something big, I need people. I need great people. And I need a lot of great people. And usually great people either have their own thing going on or are building something else. So I realized that if I try to bring together a bunch of great people, I need two things. Number one, I need to provide them with the best and biggest opportunity of their lifetime, because I believe in this. Alone you can go fast, together we can go further, right? And number two, provide them purpose, something they can actually rally around, something that can fulfill them deep down. That it's like, I actually made a difference in someone else's life.
Money. How do you tame the ego? Because one of your things is pride and ego. I'm making all this money now.
Oh, dude.
I can call out the shots. How do you tame the ego? Because one of the things that stood out to me the most about you, I'm very sensitive spiritually. Like my intuition is precise. And when I met you, I said, this guy is very different than your average 8-figure entrepreneur. You act like you're nobody. You know, in such a positive way. You come in, you're peaceful, you're present, you're bringing good conversations, you're interested, you're interesting, you're humble. That's a very attractive quality. So how do you tame the ego, especially when you're one of the giants in the industry that's just getting started, and now you have all this money, you have the power? How do you tame the ego?
You know, it's an ongoing battle. People from our village, from the village where my father is originally from, the community is all known to be very, like, all have big egos. In Arabic, there's an impression, they say their noses are gonna hit the sky or something like that, you know what I mean? Because they're like so, like, their egos are so large or whatever. And then my family, from my dad's side, my dad, his brothers, they all have big egos. Like, all of them have big egos. And it's not just about the ego, actually, it's more about pride. Very proud, very, you know? Like, they won't do certain jobs, they won't do like that, you know? So I get that from him. And I ran my first business with that ego, and that business burned into the ground, literally. The day that my restaurant burned down, I got a text message from, what's his name? I forgot. I think it was Cody. I forgot. He was one of our cooks. He likes to call himself a chef. So one of our chefs, he texted me. So it was a pizza restaurant. He said, the day that the restaurant burned down, like 2 hours later, he said, I bet that pizza is pretty well done now, huh, asshole? Ha, 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 ha.
He texted you that?
He texted me that. 2 hours after my restaurant burned down.
Wow.
Dude, it was the worst text that I've gotten in my life. This was, you know, we're closing on 10 years now, and I still remember it, you know? But that's because I wasn't a servant leader. It's because I was showing up as the boss. I'm the boss, you're my employee, do as I say. And this is how my dad built his company. And although he had outside circumstances, he had inside circumstances, because he was the, He was the genius with 1,000 helpers. He was the guy, the mover, the shaker that everyone did not duplicate himself. So when he crashed and burned, there was no one to help him go up. And so after my restaurant burned down, I was like, okay, well, something happened here. What is it? And after some reflection, I realized it's the ego and the way of managing and leading and working with people that really led me down this path. So that's when I started doing it a different way. But I still struggle with my ego, man. And honestly, I think, so they kind of work against each other. The people pleaser and the ego and pride. Because if you think about it, if someone has ego, like, they don't give a shit about pleasing people. But I also have people pleaser here and avoiding conflict, which I feel like actually help tune down my ego and bring out that humility in me. But not enough. Because again, masterminds, I'm too good. Like for example, I wouldn't have gone up to Patrick and said hello had you not held me accountable and stayed in that corner and be like, hey, let's go. I've had the same opportunity with Tony Robbins. And I watched Tony pass in front of me, and every fiber in me was like, dude, go say hello to this guy. First of all, I've paid him $85,000 just to be there. Number two, it's like he has such an amazing presence that like just being in that person's company is just so awesome, And it's like now we have B-roll, we can put it in our videos and all that stuff, But I didn't do it, dude. My ego, my pride wouldn't get me to do it. And it's like, who cares? Like, he's Tony Robbins. Like, I'll have another opportunity. Like, who gives a shit? You know what I mean? All these people are going up to him and, oh my God, Tony. Like, that's not me. I'm too, he probably has this. And all these thoughts going in my head. But then, like, literally, if you had not been there and, like, pushed me and grabbed your phone and, like, go and blah, 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 I probably wouldn't have done it.
Wow.
So it's a struggle. It's a struggle that I deal with every single day, bro. But the thing that's different today than a week ago, for example, or prior, is now I'm aware of its cost. So that's the difference. It's that now, not only do I know it's there, but I know that it's cost me literally millions of dollars. So now it's like, okay, there's a tangible thing, and I need to work on it. So literally every situation that I'm in, it's like that I feel like might trigger one of them, I immediately go, like for example, the situation with one of my executives about the money for the hotel. Like I immediately was like, but wait, why? Why am I going to pay an extra $800? Like it makes no sense. And I was like, I'm trying to people please. Screw that. I'm going to send a message. Don't be an asshole.
Right.
I wasn't like,
The
what
right
are you
approach.
thinking? Blah, blah, blah. No, none of that. It's like, hey man, look, just, look into, and it's like, I'm already on it. When I saw I was choking, I was like, all right, great.
Thank you for sharing that transparency because I can relate a lot to that. And one of the things that comes up to my mind next here is, what is money to you?
A vehicle.
Vehicle.
It's a means to an end. That's all it is. It allows you to do things that without it, you're not able to do. They say, and you've probably heard this, they say people change, or money changes people. I say money magnifies people. If you're an asshole, you're going to be a bigger asshole. If you're a good person, you're going to be a bigger good person. If you like helping people, you're going to help more people. So it's a vehicle. That's all it is. It's just like selling on Amazon, for example. I'm not passionate about selling on Amazon, but it was a vehicle to help me get out of debt, marry my wife, and retire my parents, Like right now, for example, and that's why I realized that we can teach so many skills to people because selling on Amazon or copywriting or sales or affiliate marketing or starting this business or starting that, they're all vehicles. And the vehicle is to fix someone's financial position. That's all really it is. So,
you guys seem to do that so well, Bashar. Man, I'm just so grateful to be able to have this conversation and to provide people with the value that you've been sharing. I want to ask you, what does legacy mean to you?
Lasting impact. A year and a half ago, I had a seizure out of nowhere. We've spoken about that. And for about 2 months after, I lived in anxiety, panic attacks until now, actually. Remember when we met did I say that? I think I told you. The dinner we had on last Wednesday, I told you guys the first 15 minutes I was very anxious, because it was a new environment, a lot of people. I had never met you guys. And it's anxiety that I've never dealt with in my life. I've had 9 businesses, 7 of which have failed. I've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Never, I was stressed out, yes, but never anxious to where I'm feeling like I'm about to pass out or like, oh my God, what's going on, And because it was a seizure that happened out of nowhere at a time where I was making the most money, had the best, marriage was great. Everything was great in my life. And literally, I feel dizzy. 20 seconds later, I'm on the ground. I'm out, foaming at the mouth, full seizure. And I don't come to until like an hour and a half later. My wife is like, you were yelling at me at the grocery store and you were speaking in Arabic. I don't speak, I speak Arabic, but me and her don't speak Arabic. And she's like, you were just mumbling stuff. And people were, the paramedics were asking me like, do you know what time it is? Do you know who the president, blah, blah, all this stuff. I was just nothing, until I finally came to when we got to the hospital. And so what that did is it created a lot of anxiety in my life because it was like, well, shit, that happened. I have no control. What if one day I'm driving and that happens? What if, and so my mind just went on overdrive. And literally for 2 months, I would sleep 2 hours a day. I lost like 10 pounds in a week. I couldn't leave the house because I would have a panic attack and start shaking and just like I couldn't move. That's when I found my performance coach and got into spirituality and really kind of reconnected with my faith and stuff like that. And so one of the things that I came across was this exercise that we just recently did with my performance coach. I do these intensives twice a year. I go away for 2-3 days with my performance coach, and we spend about 8 hours each day, and we just kind of like focus on one area of life, and we look at different things and go deep, and a lot of reflection and a lot of meditation and stuff like that. And she walked me through this exercise called, death simulation. So you simulate your death.
Yeah, that was insane.
So she had me lay on the ground. She had me write first 20 things on 20 cards, 5 people that are important for you in life, 5 things, 5 this, 5 that. So I just kind of have all the stuff here. And then I'm laying on the ground, and then she's walking me through this, how like, one day you woke up and you feel an ache, and then you go to the doctor and they do blood tests, and then they found out you have cancer, and then you're dying, and then you're chemo, and then now you're dying this, and they cut off your legs, and like all this, literally for an hour telling me my death story that I'm dying. And then as she's speaking, all right, now let go of a card. Now let go of a card. Now let go of a card. And the last 3-4 cards are like God, my wife, my dog, my mission, my mom, And you're like letting go all these things that mean so much to you. And I realized it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when we're going to die. Nothing's going to stay. The only thing that will stay is the impact that you made in this life. So I think of the Wright brothers. I think of Walt Disney. I think of Steve Jobs. I think of Thomas Edison. I think of, most recent examples, Jeff Bezos. The things that they have created, Uber, the things that they have created are things that will live on for hundreds of years beyond they die. And that's what I'm trying to build. How can I build something where 50 to 100 years after I die, not from today, after I die, is still here, because that's the only thing that I can leave behind. But it's not just a thing, it's something that has impacted people's lives, has impacted the way that we do life. People would look back and say, had Bashar and I created this, the life we know today wouldn't be the same. The way that I know how to create a lasting impact today is by providing people alternative to education in 3 to 5 years, and that's why I have a 3 to 5 year vision. In 3 to 5 years, I might realize that lasting impact for me is at a different level. And that's why I'm setting up that company for exit. So that way in 3 to 5 years, if I realize that there is a bigger impact that I can make somewhere else, I can hand it over to someone else that will continue the legacy, and then I'll go on to make a different type of lasting impact.
Stellar. Superb. How did you reignite your faith? For maybe some people that they've been through a lot. You're somebody who's been through a lot, and you've been able to overcome. You've had the grace and favor of God. How did you reignite that faith?
You just realize that you're not in control anymore, and you realize that there is something that has put you on this planet and that has kept you around for as long as you have, and that you really don't have control of everything, right? Because we're control freaks. Although sometimes some people will say, no, I don't like to control. No, you're a control freak. We all are, right? Some of us more than others, and we like to control everything. Well, when I had a seizure, for example, we had just parked the car 5 minutes prior, and my wife was sitting right next to me. So if my seizure had happened 5 years prior, we might have, both of us, been dead. Because I would have been driving, I would feel dizzy, what's going on? I don't know what's happening, and all of a sudden, bam, it's good, just gone. Like I went out. I was walking around, and I told my wife, I said, hey, I'm not feeling good. I don't know what's going on. And she literally shoves a carrot in my mouth. She's like, oh, you're probably hungry. Here's a carrot. And then 20 seconds later, I'm on the ground foaming at the mouth. So you realize that you're not in control anymore. And you start thinking, it's like, well, but what is this? How is it that's going on here? And that's when you have to start having like a level of trust and release control and say, it's okay. That's fine. If that's how I go, that's how I go. It is what it is. Everyone's going to go. It's just a matter of when, not if. And for me, I was raised as a Catholic all my life. And so it was a familiar thing for me. And I had kind of distanced myself from it for couple years when I focused on business, but then I realized that I wouldn't be here had I not had the faith. Because I remember in 2015, 16, when I lost everything, the moment things turned around for me was when I stopped asking and started appreciating. Instead of, God, I want this, God, I want that, why is this happening, why is that happening, I want this thing, I want that done by that, I stopped asking. And I just started saying, you know what? I don't lose, I either win or I learn. These are all learning lessons that I'm pretty sure at some time in my life I will use. Everything happens for a reason. I deeply believe in that. I don't know what the reason is right now, God, because just 2 months ago I actually turned this business around and now you burn it down? What the fuck? You know? But now that I look back and I'm like, well, shit, okay, I get the reason now. That wasn't the right path. I just had to be removed and put on a different path. So you have to realize that there is a level of comfort you get when you release control and you stop being a control freak and say, okay, I'm just going to do my best. And then whatever happens, happens. That's cool.
Incredible. Bashar, thank you so much for everything that you've shared, for being so open, so transparent, and, you know, giving so much value on this episode. I really enjoyed it. And why don't you go share with the audience if they're interested in learning more about BJK University, if they want to develop their skills to make money online, or if they just want to learn more about you and your story, where can they find you?
Sure. Just go to Instagram, search BJK University or bjkuniversity.com and follow us.
That's right, guys. Well, Bashar, thank you so much for coming.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you very much.
Yes.